another wonderful ministry, marriage, family relationship with Pastors James and Kathy Flowers, Matters of the Heart.
God bless you. Good evening, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. We look forward to this all the time. Every Monday, we look forward to spending a few minutes with each and every one of you. Uh, we want to say that we love the fact that you're tuning in and that you're with us as we talk about matters of the heart and skills for when the heart matters.
And we're so appreciative of Bishop Cochran and all the work that he does to make this happen. And I know that his heart is to bless and enhance the body of Christ. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to share some of our information that we've learned over the years, share what we know based on research and based on just circumstances that we've seen. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to parenting. And so we know that it affects a child's lifetime. And so, what we want to do is just share how we can enhance a child's life so that that child grows up and becomes a confident person, grows up and know that they have worth and value, and that they have something to offer. Because life is not just about getting up and eating and going to work and working a job until you're so tired that you retire, but it's about giving back. It's about enhancing the lives of those around you, especially if you become a parent. You want to do as much as you can to help that child be the best that they can be. And it is not a job for the faint of heart. It is a job, but it is so rewarding because you get to take this little bundle of joy and watch them develop over the years and become a wonderful person.
Just one out.
Okay. So the computer just decided to go. What you gonna do about that?
Plug it in.
Okay. So anyway, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the nurturing of a child, how to allow that child to thrive in your presence. As a parent, you want to offer all the benefits of what your child could be and can be based on what you give them and what you know. Unfortunately, there are a lot of parents that don't have the skills of parenting because a skill is something that you learn to do well, and you do it so well that you can do it even before you think about doing it. It just works for you. You want a skilled electrician. If you have something going on in the house and there's a shortage or what have you, then you want to make sure that you have someone that has the experience. You know that they are certified. You know that they've been trained. Same thing with, let's say, a surgeon. You don't want to go in there with someone that just graduated. But how would you know? But anytime that there's skills involved, that means that what we've done is we've looked at our craft, whatever that is, and we've done it, and we've done it well, and we've done it for so long that it becomes second nature. And with parenting, a lot of times we may not have the skills that we desire because maybe we grew up in a household that wasn't skilled and the parents weren't loving and nurturing. So this is a subject matter that's a little, some people, have the mindset, oh, I don't need anybody to tell me how to raise my kids. And if you look at society, you can tell that there are a lot of people that just weren't raised in a loving, nurturing, and affirming environment. And so we want to share with you what we've learned about parenting. Now, there's been a lot of material that's been written over the years. There's been a lot of expert advice. We're not experts, we're novices, but I think we know enough. The gray hair shows that I think we know enough where we can at least assist or just give some tips. And that's what we want to do this evening. The computer went out on us, so my husband had to go and get a plug in. So speaking of a plug in, I'm grateful that my husband and I have the heart to do this. Some of you may know that some years ago we lost 3 children in a fire, a tragic accident that happened. And it was devastating because that's your kid, that's your family, those are your sons and your daughter, and that's what happened to us. But God, in his infinite wisdom, saw to allow us to live through that, come out on the other side, and not blame God, not curse God, but to celebrate who he is and the fact that we know how much he loves us. And like a good father, he takes care of his children. And that's what God has done over the years. He has taken care of us. He has provided for us. And he has shown us that there's something that he wants us to do. And so here we find ourselves not just working in recovery centers and prisons, but we are offering some sage advice to a program such as this. And so, Pastor, where can we start from here?
Well, if we went back to Ephesians, I think it's chapter 6, I think it's verse 4, it tells us to fathers not to provoke your child to wrath. And that is really the very important statement that you want to begin with. That concept means don't be petty. Don't make your child mad just because you're the dad.
Or you're having a bad day.
Or you're having a bad day or something like that. It means don't frustrate them. And so it's the one thing you don't want to do is bring up or grow up a scared kid. You don't want them to be scared of you because they'll run away from you or they'll hide from you, and they actually need to be connected to you.
Right.
They need your wisdom, and so there's the years from 0 to probably around 7 or 8 or so, where you actually have the most influence, and it is the time that you want to spend developing influence with your children. Because when they get 12, 13, there's going to be a change. Now, that change actually is more chemically induced rather than anything else. It is the time the child starts to want to take on possession of their own life. And that's a chemical reaction, and that's going on in the brain. I can do it myself. Now, the reality is they can't, but they don't know that. They don't know that. And
they just feel that they can.
Yeah. I got it. I can do it, and that kind of thing. And I don't want no one telling me what to do. All of those kinds of things are
rebelliousness. It's an enemy to learning.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you shut down and you close up, and you tune the people that can help you. You start to tune them out. Oh, that's just mom and dad talking. That's just them doing what they do. But I know. And the thing is, you don't. Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. But like Pastor was saying, you have this window where you're given an opportunity to influence that child, and you will need to take every precaution to be influential, so that when that child later on down the years, when they really need your advice, you want them to come to you. You don't want them to be afraid of talking to you. You don't want them to feel embarrassed. You want to have the type of relationship where that child knows that they can come to you. They won't be blasted. They won't be sermonized or anything like that. But you can actually sit down and have a conversation about life, because this is what they're going to experience. Life. They don't really know it yet. They don't understand the complexities of what will happen as life moves on. So you always want to keep the window open where your child feels comfortable and confident in coming and sharing with you what they're dealing with, because they're going to be just go back in your memory bank and remember all the questions that you had and all the things that you wanted to know, but you didn't really have anybody to talk to, or maybe you were too embarrassed or too ashamed to talk to your parents. You know, and then sometimes this is where grandparents can step in, because grandparents have all this wisdom that's bottled up in them. While the parent is getting frustrated, the grandparent will take the child aside and say, you know what, your dad is really trying to help. Your mom is really trying to tell you something that will save you heartache in the future. So listen to them, because they really do have something to say. So you want to make sure that you have the kind of relationship with your child where they feel comfortable in coming to you about anything, because there's a lot going on. Even with the pandemic, children are just confused. What is this about? What do you mean I can't go and see so and so, and why do we have to wear these masks? They're confused. They don't understand it, and some of us adults don't understand it. But we know this: we want to keep ourselves and our children safe, and that's what you want to do as a parent. Keep them safe.
So over here in Proverbs now, we were talking about Ephesians, but here in Proverbs, the chapter 22 and verse 6, it tells us, train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. Now, the point in all of this is that to train means I have to have influence. I can't train a person that does not listen to me, and they won't listen to me if they don't admire or think well of me. That's why it's important not to make your child afraid of you.
Right.
Because fear makes them learn one thing. Influence helps them learn something different. You need them to be able to hear you and be open to you. Now, the beginning of influence actually starts over here in verse 1. It tells us here in chapter 22 and verse 1, it says, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches and loving favor rather than silver and gold. A good name is more important than riches, and favor, loving favor, is more valuable than precious stones. And a good name means a good reputation, which comes from the place of your character and your integrity and how you live your life. Okay, and favor then comes from this concept. Good favor, loving favor comes from the concept of influence. Because you have favor with a person, you actually have influence. And that is what you need for a good parent. You need influence, and you need integrity and character that builds a good name, a good reputation for yourself. Okay, so that's the foundation. And in those early years, what your child has to do is learn who you are.
Right.
Your title doesn't tell them who you are. I'm your daddy. That doesn't tell me who you are. It doesn't even tell me if I should value you. It doesn't tell me if I should admire you. I need to know your reputation. And that comes from that's what it's talking about when it says a good name. What is your reputation? And as your child grows up in your environment, in the environment with you, they get to learn who you are.
Mm-hmm.
This becomes really critical, especially in those years between the 12s and the 19s and the 20s, because they're going their own way. And at that point, when they get 12, you probably don't have very much control over them emotionally. And so you're losing physical control.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really important then is that you keep a relationship in place through your influence.
Mm-hmm.
You keep that relationship in place, because when they get 22, 21, they're going to need to hear from someone that has some wisdom, that has their best interests at heart.
And it should be the parent.
Should be the parent. Should be the parent. So that's the bottom line in all of this, and that's why this becomes so important to us. And so the good news about this is that you got all of these years up front to develop this, so when you get there, you're ahead of the game. That's the good news. That's the good news. Now, we left off last week talking about the purpose then of parenting. And we found out that the purpose, as we talked about, the purpose of parenting is to protect and to prepare. Protect your child
Mm-hmm.
or your children, and prepare them
Mm-hmm.
for two things: to survive. Your child, first of all, needs to know how to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and then how to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And not in, here's the key, not in your world, but in their world,
Mm-hmm.
in the world that they're going to grow up in.
Because it will definitely be different from the world we know now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that means that there are some truths, some character truths that have been proven over the years that you kind of need to make sure you get instilled in them,
Mm-hmm.
so that they worked over the years, they will work in their years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is the environment that they're going to live in? High tech. It's diverse. It's probably going to be a democratic society. So what you want to do is prepare your child how to survive in the society in which they're going to live.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at a few of the different societies that are that is important for us to understand what might take place. You could take the word society and exchange it for the word environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are three of them that we want to kind of look at here today. There are three kinds of environments that your child has to learn how to survive or thrive. And you, as the parent, really set this up for them. One of them is dictatorship. Think about that. Many of us may have had dictator parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with a dictator is when you, as the child, you may have to learn how to survive and thrive in a dictatorship, but it doesn't prepare you for a democratic society.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to end up then trying to enforce what we learned on our children as the society continues to change, which makes it more and more difficult for them to survive in their society, and makes it harder for them to train up their children to survive in the society in which they're going to live.
Right. Because it will become more democratic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we do live in a democracy. Everybody gets to pick and choose how they want to live. It might not be the way you would like to see lived, but everybody has that freedom to do so, and that's what democracy means.
Mm-hmm.
That I have freedom to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether you agree with me or not, whether you hold my values or lack thereof, that's up to you. But in our children's lives, things will be even more democratic, and for lack of a better way of saying, it's going to change, and it may change not for the better, but for the worse.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a child learn to live with people that look different from they are, that speak differently, that eat differently, that their clothing is different. You know, if to go to a foreign country, you know, to be an American and go to a foreign country, you might have to, you know, maybe your child will be sent to school somewhere in Bangladesh. I don't know. But will they, you know, always be looking for the comforts of the United States? You know, they might have to learn how to eat differently and how to talk to people that don't speak the language. They don't speak English as well as they do. So we have to learn how to, and I think I used this last week with Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? That's all we need to do, because everybody is trying to survive. Everybody wants to thrive. You know, even during this pandemic, how do we take what we know? How do we take what we have and make it through this? You know, it's almost been a year, and it looks like it might, you know, and more than certain, it's going to go into next year. So do we panic, or do we settle down and say, okay, these are the things that need to be done? And your child needs to be able to cognitively come to some solutions, come up with some ways of doing things differently, because things aren't always going to be the way we want them to be. We're just going to have to learn how to live with the changes and how society is changing and how people are changing and the value system that you may hold. Your child may not hold that, or someone that they date may not hold your values. What do you do with that? You know, they may marry someone outside of your race. Or outside of, you know, what you're used to seeing. Can we accept that person for who they are? That's what surviving and thriving is all about. Being open to change.
So let's, for example, let's just look at one environment. So let's just take the dictator environment. Now, what does a child need to survive and thrive if they're living under a dictator? One, they need fear. They need to learn and experience fear, because that's what the dictator does. That's how a dictator controls, through fear.
Imposes their rules.
And the other thing is, a child has to learn to become blindly obedient to the dictator. What does that mean for the child? The child never learns how to think
on their own.
They become blindly obedient to whatever the dictator says,
because the dictator said it. And you better do it,
or else.
Off with the head.
Fear.
That was dictatorship back in the day.
What else does a child have to learn about a dictatorship? No belief in free will. The child has there's no such thing as free will in a dictatorship.
Now, it's my way or the highway.
Now think about bringing up a child in that kind of environment. What will they do to the person that they connect to? If they marry someone and they came up like this, how will they raise their kids? How will they treat their mate? If you were the victim of a dictator father, and suppose you're male and you were the victim of a dictator father, you might want to be very careful that those tendencies are not in you. What did she say? Good evening, pastors. Oh, okay.
Hi,
Shannon. Because if those tendencies, hey, Michelle.
Hi, baby girl. Help us to do better, Lord. He will.
So if those things were what you grew up in and you learned how to survive in it, it may be a part of how you then turn to parent your children.
Mm-hmm. Do as I say or else.
Remember, no belief in free will.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a say
In the matter.
in the matter. No, some of that. Remember those days, and I'm sure some of you remember them. I know I remember. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't come in the room. This is adults in the room. You can't come in here. Not concerned about how that made you feel. It may not have been a place for you.
Could have been inappropriate.
It could have been very inappropriate for you.
Conversation.
But no concern about how you felt. That kind of dictatorship. There is no such thing as free will in a dictatorship. It is all about the will of the dictator. And if you
because a dictator says in his mind, what I say is law.
Yes.
And if you break the law, you pay the price.
Yes.
You know, like, didn't I tell you to do la 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 la? And the child's, no, I didn't. I'm sorry, I forgot. And so what comes behind that? Punishment. Not discipline, not learning, but punishment.
Punishment.
And what does that teach a child to do? Hit. Hurt.
Yep. Punish. So to survive in that kind of environment, you have to have blind obedience. Okay. Now, the problem with blind obedience is that you can grow up and become an adult and expect children to have blind obedience
Excuse me.
toward you. Excuse me, bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that what that does is it limits your child because it does not give them the ability to think for themselves, and it does not teach them the skills how to articulate, how to talk with you. They never learn how to talk with you because blind obedience says you don't say nothing, you just do what I say. What that develops in our children is low self-esteem.
It means that I don't think very highly of myself because I'm always being told, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't say anything. And we'll get into this because some of this sounds like, okay, so we're just supposed to let kids get away with whatever. No, that's not what we're saying. But what we're doing is we're concentrating on what a dictator parent looks like, what they sound like, and how they parent. And this type of parenting does not allow the child to learn as much as they could learn if they were in a democratic society. Or if they were parented by someone that understood the nature of a child. Children are curious. They're always going to be inquisitive about a lot. They might ask you something, and they don't mean to embarrass you, but you know, they need to know. They want to know, and you want to be able to teach them. But they will not ask you some of those important questions if they're afraid of you. And children are afraid of dictator parents. Yes. Now, there's a fine line between afraid and respect. Now, respect is, I respect who you are as my parent. But then being afraid means that I don't know what's going to come down. I don't know if the hammer is going to drop, if I say the wrong thing, if I do the wrong thing. And there's punishment behind that rather than discipline and teaching me not to do that again or to do it in a different way or to say it in a different way.
So remember, a dictatorship, for the child to survive in a dictatorship, they need these 4 things. They need to be afraid. They need to have blind obedience. They need to have no free will, and they have to, and those things create
Low
low
self-esteem.
self-esteem. Now it's not okay, but they can survive in a dictatorship society with that. Now, the problem is we don't live in a dictatorship society. That's the problem. And a child that grew up in that is really at a disadvantage in a democratic society. Now, I hope that this is making sense to us. Now, this is why, well, let's look at another type. Let's look at a lawless society.
Where people rebel.
So, what does a child need to survive and thrive in a lawless society?
Okay, where there's an absence of laws, where there's an absence of what's expected, they have a strong will. They will buck the system, go against whatever it is that you say, whatever it is that you do. I don't want your beliefs. I don't care what you think. I don't believe in God, whatever that looks like. Okay? And then sometimes they're violent because they will strike out and rebel against all this dictatorship. Because when we go back into history, what did the people do? They rebelled against a king or a dictator, someone that said it's got to be this way, my way or the highway. Okay, and then there's self-centeredness? Yeah, where it's all about me. I don't care about anybody else. I'm not thinking about anybody else. I got to make it for myself. Not concerned about those around you, not concerned about family or anyone. I got to take care of me. That's my phone.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry, I gotta go answer a call.
So, think about this. Now, in the lawless society, the strong-willed child is just the same as the dictator father. Both the dictator father or mother and the strong-willed child of the lawless society are basically the same. They have this strong will. The violence in the lawless society is the result of I'm not going to have blind obedience in the dictator society. I'd rather fight than just go blindly in obedience to you. Okay, the other thing is self-centered. In other words, it's all about me, which is the same kind of thing that the dictator parent has. It's all about me. So the dictator parent is the same as the self-centered child in the lawless environment. The other thing is that in a lawless society, the child has to learn to be insensitive to others. Which, if a child learns to be insensitive to others, when they grow up, they become the dictator who is insensitive to the children. So hopefully this is making sense to us. It's why we don't want to create a dictatorship for our children to grow up in. It's why we don't want to create a lawless society for them to grow up in. Because the lawless society creates dictators. Okay. So, the other thing is this. A democratic society. Now, what is a democratic society? It's a group of people that get together and vote and make laws that they all decide to live by, and they create a government that and a law enforcement force that helps to support those laws and make sure they get done, and everyone has their vote. Now, in a dictatorship society, everybody has their say, but everybody doesn't have their way. In a democratic society, everyone has their say. but everyone doesn't have their way. Okay, because everything in a democratic society is supposed to be voted on. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean all of these, and what we have is a whole bunch of, if I could make a picture, a whole bunch of different colored, different kinds of design marbles all in one big bowl. And what we have to learn how to do is learn how to survive and thrive and get along in the bowl. Okay. And that is the job of the parent, to teach the child how to get along, how to survive, and how to thrive in the democratic bowl in which they're going to live in. So let's look a little bit at a democratic society. First of all, what do you need? The very first thing you need in a democratic society is courage. You need courage to be different. You need courage to stand up. You need courage to stand for your character. You need courage to stand for what's true. You need courage to do the right thing. Courage to not be persuaded by peers, because this is a democratic society. Everybody can think whatever they want to think, but you need courage to stand for truth. That's what a child has to learn. One of the beginnings of learning that is going to school. As it's not just learning book knowledge, it's learning how to live and get along with children in the environment. You need courage to do things, to do the right things, to not do the wrong thing. Where does that courage come from? It comes from parents. The other thing that you need in a in a democratic society is you need to learn the concept of responsibility. I need to take ownership for myself, and I need to develop the concept that my word needs to mean something. If I say I'm going to do something, I need to do what I say. Where does that come from? Parents. Parents teach children and how to become responsible and give them the ability in the environment as they live with you to practice being responsible. Daddy's depending on you. Daddy needs you to do such and such and such. And because you have influence, your child is listening to you. But they still have no clue about what it costs to be responsible. But they're willing to try because of your influence, not fear, influence. And as they begin to try, what they discover, that saying you're going to do something is a whole lot different than doing what you're saying. Responsibility. They need to learn responsibility. Oh my. Responsibility gets involved in everything. All kinds of things requires us to be responsible. Okay, the other thing is the child in a democratic society needs to learn how to be able to cooperate. Cooperation is very important in a democratic society. How do I get along with you? How do we work together? I can think different from you, yet I can work with you. How does that happen? A child learns this in the family, in the environment of the family. They learn how to become a person that can cooperate with other people.
Okay.
And then the child needs to learn respect.
Mm-hmm.
How to respect people.
Mm-hmm. how to honor
Mm-hmm.
other people, and that comes with them seeing you honor other people and to even honor them as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're a child doesn't mean that you can't honor them, that you can't celebrate who they are. And, sorry, I had to take a call.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about how sometimes, I remember this is, the way I heard adults say or talk to children, because I said so. You do it because I said so. Okay, if I'm not given an explanation as to why I should do a certain thing, then I can become prey to someone that tells me just do it because I said so. Because you're not you don't learn how to process information. You don't learn how to recognize what could be dangerous and not dangerous. I think about women, they get into abusive and violent relationships because that man says, because I said so. Shut up. Don't say anything. And sometimes we raise our children that way. And for young ladies, I think we need to really look at that, because she can get into a relationship with someone that dishonors her, disrespects her, takes advantage of her, and could even end up beating her and, God forbid, kill her. So there's a lot of things about parenting that we really need to just take a second look at. And some children have grown up in dictatorship parenting, under dictatorship parenting. I was raised that way because my mother was a single mother, and there were things that she just had to say and she just had to do because she was trying to fill both roles, and it makes it just more difficult. I was one of those kids that always asked questions, and sometimes I've heard a child ask a question and a parent says, "Shut up. You don't get to ask questions." How do we learn if we don't ask questions?
Okay, and so this is critical. Respect is critical.
Mm-hmm.
A child really never understands respect unless they're respected.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what it is to respect someone,
Right.
unless they've received respect.
And unless they see it demonstrated to others.
Mm-hmm.
Like even showing respect within the family, brothers and sisters respecting one another. You don't get to call your sister out of her name. You don't get to slam your brother around just because you're older than he is.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you learn how to respect when respect is shown to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can go too much further than this tonight. We'll probably pick this up next week. At this point, hopefully this has been informative to you, and we'll get into the details of all of this that we've just talked about here as we continue through this process.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, the purpose of parenting is to teach children, is to protect and to
To protect and teach them how to survive and thrive
mm-hmm.
in a changing world, in a democratic society.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what democracy is. The society is changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's evolving over time. And some of it's good and some of it's not.
Right. So we'll pick this up next week and protect and prepare. Yeah, that's just, I had a senior moment.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. We give you a pass.
Okay.
Because I'm going to need a pass from time to time myself.
Okay, so hopefully this time has been good for you. And remember this, that we
want your life to be good. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Mwah.
Yes.